suffering in yourself you don't want, but when you get it, you work with it and you see its grace even though you don't want it, and you grow with it. That you can handle. That's paradoxical, but you barely can handle it. But suffering of somebody you love or suffering of other human beings is a whole other ballgame. And you may intellectually know that suffering is grace, but when your child is sick, your partner is sick, when somebody else is suffering, it is extremely hard to say, well, it's all grace. And your human heart wants to do everything you can to take away their suffering. And when you listen quietly inside, you listen to that paradox, and you live with that tension that the human heart is empathizing with suffering of a separate entity, and it rips your human heart to shreds. You want to do everything you can to relieve the suffering, and there's so much of it that it's unbearable. And what you do is you armor your heart. You're protecting yourself in two ways at once. One is you're protecting yourself from the pain of others because you can't take away their suffering, and it hurts you so much to see them suffering. And the other thing is you're protecting your separateness from the innate generosity of your heart, which would give away everything. Because the heart doesn't know boundaries. The deepest part of your heart isn't an instrument of separateness. The deepest part of your heart is an instrument of unity. The deepest part of your heart, your conscious heart, your compassionate heart, your intuitive, deep heart, it knows that we are all one. It lives in that universe. It is our minds that puts up the separateness. Our minds are the instruments of our separateness. Our hearts are the doorways to our unity. So the heart, unprotected, will just keep you suffering. It's not your suffering, it's our suffering. How can I go on when you're suffering? Because there's no you and there's no me. And the mind is saying, now, wait a minute, think about tomorrow. After all, you've got this separateness to consider. And so what we really have is a dialogue going on between our thinking mind, which is an instrument of our separateness, and our compassionate heart, which is an instrument of our unity. So it's the dialogue between separateness and unity that's being fought out inside ourselves between the mind and the heart. And the mind throws a fish out now and then by what's called professional warmth, of pity and kindness and doing good, but doing good from a safe place. Doing good so that you don't threaten the integrity of the separate entity. But can you see that as you identify more and more with that in you, which is part of everything, the need to protect that separateness gets less and less, and you can let yourself more into the stream. You can go in a little deeper because you learn how to swim a little. You don't just wade at the edge. You can go into the water of the universe of suffering more. And what I do is I put myself in these situations, and I'm constantly watching that balance inside myself. I'm very aware when my heart gets so engaged that I feel I'm losing my clarity. See, if you come down too much into the heart, it breaks. It breaks again and again, but I mean, it gets muddy because you want to take away their suffering. And you're busy judging God. You're saying, you really screwed up giving this person suffering. And yet if you get too far into the other place, it's so cold. It's so impersonal. It's like somebody falls down, you say, karma. I mean, it doesn't have the human heart in it. And it's that balance of the heart and that higher wisdom, the human heart and the deeper heart. That balance is where the saving grace is. Not to deny your humanity and not to deny your divinity. We all know our humanity all too well. And that's why we put the focus on recognizing that part of us that isn't in the humanness to bring a balance about it. Because that's what you offer another person. You don't protect your heart from breaking. Because in a way, a broken heart is like cracking the shell to let the deeper heart come forth. It's like the monk who's crying because his son has died, and the student comes up and says, "What are you crying about? You know it's all illusion." And he says, "Yes, but the death of a son is the greatest illusion." You don't close off your humanity by any means, but you balance your humanity. Because if you don't balance your humanity, you burn out or armor your heart. And if you armor your heart, you starve to death because you're not getting fed. Because you've got to avert your eyes from the suffering of the world. You can't look at the have-nots in the world. You can't stand it. You've got to look away all the time. You've got to avert your eyes from Central America and from India and from all those places. Because you just can't stand it. Because you feel so impotent to do something to take away the suffering. If you are going to be free, your freedom means that you do not avert your eyes from anything in yourself or in anybody else.